Well, this is an interesting story. We've just got another Biden W. I really think it's important to continue covering these, stories as they come out of the different things Biden is doing that are just good. Just good things that he's doing that we could expect the exact opposite to be done by a Republican in office. Several fold over, in fact. White House lauds PACT Act as it hits 1 million toxin claims granted to vets. So for those that don't know, the PACT Act is basically a bill that funds healthcare medical treatment for veterans who've been exposed to toxic substances while serving this country. It could be repairing a jet and some jet fuel burns off and they inhale the fumes and it gives them cancer. They will be able to make a claim to medical care covered by the government with this plan. So far, 1 million people will see, 1 million vets will seem to have been covered by this so far. I guess. Maybe it's just who have claimed, not going to be covered. We'll have to see. Let's read. The White House announced Tuesday that more than 1 million claims have been granted through the PACT Act, a landmark law passed in 2022 that gave veterans expanded access to apply for compensation and relief related to toxic exposures during service. More than 880,000 veterans are receiving disability benefits through the PACT Act across the entire country and its territories, according to the White House. How many times have you heard a conservative dumbfuck say, "Why are we giving money to Ukraine when we've got homeless veterans here?" as a criticism towards Biden? Meanwhile, no Republican has ever done anything positive for homeless veterans. Meanwhile, Biden has provided more than 880,000 veterans disability benefits through the PACT Act, which he signed 2 years ago. It's nearly 1 million vets given disability benefits in 2 years, and yet Republicans do nothing but take from veterans. And yet you will still see Trump supporters attack Biden by trying to claim there are problems here we need to solve, not give money and weapons to Ukraine. Despite the fact that what we do give to Ukraine is just old stockpiled weapons and vehicles that we then immediately get to replacing with more modern, good, better shit, which creates jobs, usually unionized ones even, in creating new hardware for the military-industrial complex, which is always going to exist, even if you don't like it. But it's a win-win. For all the things that could come out of the military-industrial complex, it's a rarely good thing that we can stop an aggressive, invasive, adversarial country from taking more land and also make more jobs. And also give 890,000 American veterans health care, President Biden is expected to formally deliver the news later Tuesday during an event with veterans and their families while in New Hampshire. Secretary of Veterans Affairs, VA Dennis McDonough, said that, or McDonough? McDonough? I don't know how it's pronounced. Said the PACT Act has helped to bring VA to vets rather than making them change their lives to come to us. Quote, "Now the president's been quite clear that we at the VA have more work to do and nothing will stop us from fulfilling our sacred obligation to serve America's vets every bit as well as they have served us," he said in a press call. "We won't rest until every veteran and every survivor gets the VA health care and benefits they deserve. The VA still has many more claims to work through. Last year, veterans submitted more than 2.4 million claims, a 39% increase from 2022, for a total of 4.17 million claims since the PACT Act became law." So it seems like a lot of people need to be given health care still, but nearly 1 million is pretty substantial out of 4.17 million. That's a quarter of the people who applied in 2 years. Quote, "We're processing those claims at the fastest rate in history," said McDonough. The PACT Act also created $5.7 billion in earned benefits for veterans, and more than 5 million veterans have received free screenings for toxic exposures through the law. Oh, they get screenings to see if they were exposed to toxic chemicals too. The White House also released a specific breakdown Tuesday of how many claims have been granted through the PACT Act in each state. Texas has the highest number granted at 110,629, followed closely by Florida at 87,792,000, and California by 74,363. Isn't it crazy that the top two states that have taken the most money from this Biden plan are going to be the hardest red states in the election that are going to swing away from Biden? The states where the most people are benefiting from Biden's policies will go the hardest for Trump. Absolutely hilarious. Just the absolute picture of modern day American politics. Neera Tanden, White House domestic policy advisor, said Biden has been proud of the VA's fast actions and diligent implementation of the claims. Quote, "The pact is changing the way that we serve toxic exposed veterans," she said in a toxic exposed veterans, she said in a press call. "This is truly personal for the president, given his experiences as a military parent." That's true. One of his sons was in the military. There is a personal, actual emotional aspect of this to him, not just I need to make people like me as the president and make people like my policy kind of angle, you know? It was Beau Biden, I believe, died in service. Or no, I think he died of a brain tumor, probably caused by exposure to, toxic chemicals during his service, if I recall correctly. Yeah? Military service can increase the health risks as service members can come into contact with toxins from burn pits and other toxic exposures while on duty or in training. But because major diseases such as cancer can take years to develop, it can be hard for a veteran to link service to the disease. The PACT Act, however, made it easier to file claims by presuming that a veteran came into contact with toxins during service and easing the burden of proof for those seeking medical help. It also extended these services for the first time to the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, and the post-9/11 wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Nice. That's actually really big. That's really, really big. For as bad as the Vietnam War was from an American foreign policy perspective, the actual soldiers that were drafted and forced to fight in that war got a rough go of it, didn't they? 19, 20, and 18-year-olds sent off to fight in a war that, they were definitely they definitely had numbers and the guns on their side, but they didn't have the terrain or, the tactics on their side, right? They were in the jungle. They didn't know, stepping on landmines, getting shot from the trees, getting garroted and stepping into fucking traps that, shredded their legs, falling into holes and tunnels with spikes at the bottom. Just a really rough go of it. Many of these, 19-year-olds watched their high school buddy get, impaled in front of them on a spike pit with nothing they could do about it as they watched their best friend from 10 years die in front of them. And they come back home. And unlike most American wars in history, they aren't cheered and thrown a parade when they return. They're spit on and regarded as, war criminals who were responsible for the most, bad war America ever did and the war that America lost. So these were kids who were drafted and sent off into war, where they were labeled afterwards war criminal, coward, losers, and then spit on when they returned, despite the PTSD and all of the bad things that came out of having to fight. Not gonna lie, Vietnam War veterans got it fucking rough. Yeah, people called them baby killers, even though all of them were drafted and didn't have a choice. Yeah. I'm sure some of them were fucking awful, but, come on. You know? Hassan is confused by that statement because everything the USA does is bad. Sadly, you would never hear this point from Hassan because Hassan kind of necessarily has to misrepresent history to push his ideas. And it took them less than a day to fly home, so they had zero time to decompress and, get used to not being in war like World War II vets had. Yeah. In March, the VA announced that millions more veterans would be eligible to enroll directly into VA healthcare for toxic exposure without the need to first apply for VA benefits, reducing the time to wait for claim relief by up to 8 years. A senior administration official said the conditions and diseases addressed by the PACT Act so far include bronchial asthma, hypertension, and sinusitis. The White House also said in the fact sheet it is prioritizing cancer with the PACT Act, which is what Beau Biden got. The PACT Act is having a big effect across the VA. More than 440,000 veterans enrolled into VA healthcare last year, a 30% increase year over year. The VA has expanded its staff to meet the demand. Quote, the bottom line here is we are bringing more veterans in, the official said. We are, quote, we are getting them the care that they deserve, and they are currently reporting trust levels in the outpatient arena, nearly 92%, which is the highest ever. You know what's wild? There's a few veterans in my, community. One of the most humbling things for me, honestly, is when someone in my chat, and granted, I just kind of have to believe them, but I feel like, you know, there have been people who've told me they've got some wild jobs in my chat in the past, and they've been able to prove it. And so I typically believe it if there's someone who's, like, a regular. But there are people who are actual, like, ex-Air Force, ex-Navy, or actively serving, that are in my community and occasionally hop into chat. And it's always so, like, man, you've seen war. What the fuck do you have to hear from me, you know? Like, what can I tell you? But I appreciate that you're watching me, I suppose. And so hopefully this story appeals to that, like, section of my audience a lot. Like, hey, you know, you got your own story. This is your own segment. But, yeah, the VA is getting stronger from this. More jobs, more money. More support for veterans. This is just a good thing. Isn't it wild how, despite all of this, Republicans are going to still argue that Biden is taking away money from, like, veterans, homeless veterans, by providing support to Ukraine? There'll be absolutely no acknowledgement of this, if they can help it, or they'll try to find a way to get past it. Also, this was originally a bipartisan bill, but the Republicans turned against it because they realized it would make Biden look good if they passed it under Biden. And so Biden took it into his own hands and executive ordered that shit. And here we are. Biden doing it anyway, despite House Republicans trying to block it so this wouldn't pass in a Biden presidency and make him look good. Again? No, Republicans, every time a bipartisan, like, good bill comes up, the Republicans block it and refuse to support it because they don't want it to pass under Biden because it'll be attributed to Biden's presidency. And they're trying to eke out every bit of support for Trump they can. They're really desperate.
Pushing in the stand. Hey, guys, how you doing?
Hold on, I gotta boost it. Man, I wish Biden just... I don't know if it's, like, the majority of recordings of him being quiet or something, or if his microphones tend to be bad or something, or if he's just bad at speaking into microphones, but he feels so quiet. Like, you've got to really project into your microphone to give an authoritative vibe. Otherwise, you just kind of come off as mumbling and weak and submissive in a way that is not... It's not the kind of presidential that Trump established as to be expected, you know? God, my nose, once again, itching. Every time I stream.
Good to see you. Hope Mommy and Daddy promised you a real gift for doing this.
I don't get
Folks, I want to say, Sergeant, I want to thank you for your service and for introduction of me. I appreciate it very much. And congratulations on your promotion. I know your whole family is so proud. You know, when my son, Beau, was promoted to major in Iraq, I happened to be there shortly afterwards, and I said, now you're a feel-great officer. He said, I have no illusions, Dad, who runs the Army. Those folks with stripes on their shoulders. And you do. Well, thank you. Look, I want to thank Senator Maggie Hassan, Senator Jeannie Shaheen, and Congresswoman Annie Custer for their work.
You can almost barely understand him, right? Like, I can if I really try, but, like, he does have that old man way of speaking where you almost want to say, come again, you know? And that doesn't help him in the realm of, like, people really disliking his age. It's like the low approval ratings for Biden are not because of Israel-Gaza. I need you guys to recognize this. The low Biden approval ratings have nothing to do with Israel-Gaza and how he's handling it, and everything to do with how old people perceive him to be compared to Trump.
Work on behalf of veterans. And former Governor John Lynch is here with his wife, Dr. Susan, who their friendship for years has meant a great deal to me and to my family. And Secretary McDonough, thank you for your leadership, because it really matters. To all the veterans and families that are here today, I want to say thank you. We could never fully thank you for all the sacrifices you've made. Only 1% of the American population, and that's to prepare those we send into harm's way and to care for them and their families when they come home, and if they don't come home, care for their families. Nearly 2 years ago, we took a giant step toward fulfilling that obligation when I fought for and signed the PACT Act. It was one of the most significant.
The only thing I don't like about Biden is he looks identical to the president of the Enclave. You know what I mean? Like, for all we know, like, World War III is coming. Nuclear war is coming. And when it does, Biden starts the Enclave, and it's all going to be real.
Laws ever. It surprised me anybody voted against it, but a bunch did. We set up to help millions of veterans who were exposed to toxic substances during their services. And today, I'm proud to announce the VA just granted its 1 millionth PACT Act claim. 1 million. A major milestone, providing $5.7 million in benefits to 890,000 veterans and their families so far in hand, including 3,000 here in New Hampshire. It matters because too many service members have not only braced in many times in and out, you could smell it in the air.
I guess this was originally like an hour-long speech. I saw a version of this that was an hour long, so I guess this was like really long originally, which kind of makes sense why he's being so like drawn out, because if he's literally giving an hour-long speech, I'd be a bit tired in his place too, though I've been going for 3 hours. You know, I'm much more energetic, but I'm not, 90 billion years old. But yeah, I definitely wish Biden could bring out more energy more often. I hope he's able to tune it up to 11 for the debates. That's what really matters. His speaking at the debates will be what sets it. If he can be energetic and he can project himself during the debate against Trump, or the 2 debates against Trump that we currently have planned, then that'll do it. That's what people need to see.
When our troops came home, many of the fittest, best-trained warriors we've ever seen, we saw like in 9/11 fighters, for firefighters. They were incredibly helpful in making my case, because what happened? Look at all those firefighters that died of cancer as a consequence of being exposed to those toxic fumes. Headaches, numbness, dizziness, trouble breathing, cancer, brain cancer.
Ooh, good mention, Delancer. Apparently part of the PACT Act helps homeless vets get housing. Literally helping homeless veterans. But hey, Biden is bad because money to Ukraine is bad, but I'm totally not pro-Russia, though. I'm totally not pro-Russia. It's just because I care about homeless veterans. Totally. Like every Midwest conservative dumb fuck on Twitter.
Folks, you suffered long enough. You shouldn't have to prove that your illness came from their service. But thanks to the PACT Act, you don't have to prove it now. My son Bo was one of those veterans. So this is personal to me and my family, and to his family and his children, and so many of yours. So I took office. I determined that come hell or high water, we're going to protect the heroes and protect our nation. We learned a terrible lesson after Vietnam, as those harmful effects of Agent Orange took years to manifest and left too many veterans without the care they deserved, because they had to prove.
Didn't we test that on our own people? My grandma said something about being on the beach in Florida and planes flying over and crop dusting the beach with, like, orange shit. And they promised it wasn't poison or something. I don't know. I think it was, like, pesticide. Wasn't that, like, a big scandal or something? Wasn't there, like, a big scandal about that? Like it leaked out? And half of Vietnam, yeah. Like, there was literally, like, planes carrying it that leaked, flying over civilian populations, and it literally, like, dosed people on beaches, because they'd fly along the coast, and people on beaches got dosed, and I think it literally happened to my grandma as a kid. Well, as a young lady, I guess. She wouldn't have been a kid. Are you talking about Agent Orange? I think so. I might be wrong, but it was some sort of chemical that was toxic and used in chemical warfare that was being transported above civilian populations in the U.S. insecurely, thus allowing particulates to, like, fall onto civilian populations of Americans in, like, the 60s and 70s, and I think the 80s, and it was really bad. Really, really bad. Honestly, it might have been when my mom was a kid. I'm trying to remember. But this is a story I heard when I was young. But, yeah. Hey, I left for dinner and got back. Expanding veteran healthcare. Based? Yeah, Biden's based. Sounds like a modern folktale. Maybe true, IDK. Granted, I did hear the story from my mom, and she's been known to make things up. She has been known to make things up. So, there you go. You guys can do the research for me and tell me if that's real.
That every illness they had was a consequence of Agent Orange, which is often too hard to do. That's why I co-sponsored Agent Orange Act as a senator way back in 1991 to support veterans exposed to toxic substances in Vietnam. That's why I pushed to pass the PACT Act, so today's veterans don't suffer the same painful, frustrating delays and denials. That's why
we did test Agent Orange on our own people? Really? It was an herbicide used in Vietnam. Wouldn't surprise Americans were exposed. Yeah. I know that there was something about it being improperly transported, civilian populations getting crop dusted with it, basically. I know on beaches it was a problem. That's really the most I know from, like, I just heard stories about it, okay? I don't know. I didn't do research on it, okay? I've just heard stories. I grew up in Florida. People talked about that shit. Tested on Canadians, too? Well, that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with us testing toxins on Canadians, as long as it's not on our own people. I'm just kidding. Obviously, it's horrific. America does suck sometimes, believe it or not. It doesn't always suck, but it does suck sometimes.
Why we continue to work around the clock to get benefits they deserve and get them now. Many of you and your family members and advocates fought for years to make this happen. Folks literally slept on the Capitol steps the week we were fighting this out in the Senate to get it done. They literally slept on the steps. After 41 Republican senators, a vast majority...
Well, to be fair, a lot of those veterans that were sleeping on the steps were homeless. Where else were they going to sleep? Sorry. That was an in poor taste joke, but I think a good point as well.
That caucus voted against the bill, against expanding health care for disabled veterans. New Hampshire's Congressman leader Afghanistan can enroll. Over 145,000 veterans are now getting care as a result of that one change. The law also provides regular toxic exposure screenings to catch problems early when they can be dealt with. It expands access to disability benefits, including monthly payments for folks who have fallen sick. We've made those benefits effective immediately. Immediately. The law is... Look, the bottom line is...
How much you want to bet Trump somehow gets all the credit for this from voters? I'm going to guess that it's just going to be suppressed or nitpicked for wherever it's, like, lacking. Like, wherever it's not perfect, it'll be nitpicked or suppressed and ignored. Anything Biden does that's just so objectively good you can't twist it to be bad, it's all about suppressing the story, refusing to talk about it, and pretending like it's boring and not worth looking into. Because if someone, say, a pro-veteran conservative reads about this, they're going to be like, huh, Biden actually did something for homeless and sick veterans. Okay, maybe he doesn't suck as much as I thought. And they don't want that. They don't want there to be exposure to stories like this that are impossible to twist into something bad.
People not being sure we'd get it done without a lot of complication. The law invests in new facilities, new research, more healthcare workers at VA hospitals. And I'm committed to making the long-needed upgrades in the facilities, the VA's facilities right here in New Hampshire. For families who have lost a loved one, the PACT Act means monthly stipends of about $3,000 a month for a surviving spouse with two children. And by the way, surviving spouse gets those benefits for the rest of their lives. It means tuition benefits for children to go to college, to get job training.
That's
I'll
huge.
never make up for the loss.
That's huge. Surviving spouses of fallen soldiers getting, like, forever benefits for raising their children and stuff. Huge. That's big. Massive. Enormous. Huge. so many soldiers knowing about this are going to like breathe a huge sigh of relief that if anything happens to them, they know for a fact the VA will take care of their wife and their kids and stuff, or their partner.
Lost a piece of your soul, the husband, wife, son, daughter. But we owe it to folks, all of them, everyone we can, to help put their lives back together, because it's tough stuff. In America, we leave no veteran behind. That's the motto. On my way here today, I met with veterans named Lisa Clark over at the VFW. She served in the Air Force, where she met her husband, a combat.
My stepdad's dad was a VFW member, and every Christmas we'd go to visit him, because we'd visit, like, obviously my mom's side of the family and my stepdad's side of the family. And my stepdad's dad was very, very nice guy, like just a giant of a man. I need you to understand, like 6'6", maybe 6'7", and quite wide. Okay, an enormous fucking guy. And I was like 12 years old, and it was really funny that this, like, I wouldn't say he was grumpy, but like you would look at him and be like, wow, this giant of a man who's like at the VFW, probably kind of grumpy, right? Probably doesn't want to be fucked with. But no, he was very friendly with me and always very nice. And they had like a machine that just you put money in and it gave you scratch off tickets in this VFW. It was basically just a really nice bar. There was a stage area for, I guess, like events. They had like karaoke area. It was just like a big hangout, but mostly a bar. And they had this like vending machine of scratchers. And he gave me like a 50 every Christmas when I would go there to, like, we just stay at the VFW to hang out with him on Christmas. That was just the hangout place. You know, all of his buddies are there and everything. That's where he hangs out. And so I'd put the money into the thing and just get a bunch of scratchers and sit there all night just scratching off like $51 scratchers with a quarter. It was fun. It was a surprisingly fun thing we'd do on like Christmas Eve, or I think it was like in the evening on Christmas Day. Sorry, like after Christmas Eve, like in the at the end of the day, we'd go there. Really funny way to spend Christmas. But yeah, VFWs are cool. VFWs are cool. I think you can get accepted if a member lets you in, like if you're a guest of a member of the VFW. But the way that works is like you have to have either served or be the son or daughter of someone who served. Then you can be a member. But then at that point, I think there's a cutoff. Like you can't be like the son or daughter of someone who's the son of or daughter of someone who served and have membership. It's got to be like a personal connection kind of thing. But if you're a member, you can be given like you can have like +1s to come visit. You know, it's a slightly exclusive club, but not super exclusive. So it's kind of special to have been able to go into a VFW before. So just find it to be an interesting story for those of you guys that don't know what they're about. It's basically just like a hangout club for veterans and their families.
Bad engineer who served in Vietnam.
And their friends.
They were together 42 years. He was exposed to Agent Orange during his time in Vietnam, and last year he passed away from cancer.
My wife is a former Marine. Maybe we can get it, IDK. Oh, for sure. If your wife is a former Marine, oh, 100%. Your wife will be able to become a member. Your kid would be a member, and you could just be the +1. You'd be welcomed anytime that your wife is there, I'm pretty sure.
Thanks to the PACT Act, the burden was not on Lisa to prove the Agent Orange cause of cancer. And thanks to that, the PACT Act, Lisa now receives $1,600 a month survivor benefits. It doesn't take away the pain of losing her husband, but it allowed her to keep living in the same home they shared for 20 years. Service is a tradition of Lisa's family, as so many of your families are in this room today. Her dad, Anthony, joined the Navy when he was 18 years old, served in World War II. He's now 96 years old, and I think he's here in the room today. Where are you, Dad?
Like, I love Biden because I can tell how genuine he is. Like, he's actually genuine. He kind of comes off as a little sad here because he's probably, like... I'm going to try not to give him as much shit because low-key, think about it for a minute. The thought of his dead son is probably impossible to get out of his mind right now. Like, he is speaking to a bunch of veterans about about a bill he signed to provide medical care to veterans who are suffering from the same fate that killed his son. he's probably fighting back tears thinking about his actual dead child right now. So I can I feel maybe I shouldn't nitpick too much about the tone of his voice when you think about it, like, a bit. He may be the president, but he's also an actual human whose son died to the thing that he wrote this bill to keep other sons and veterans from dying to the same thing. Like, it's a genuinely emotional moment for him, it feels, you know? He kind of comes off, the more I think about it, like a wise old man here when I'm not, like, looking at it through the lens of negativity and low charitability. Wait, is Hunter Biden dead? No, Beau Biden. He had another son, Beau, who was in the military, and he died years ago from a brain tumor. Yeah, different son.
Like my deceased father-in-law.
Biden has already confirmed he was at the edge of tears the entire speech. Oh, okay, so I'm right. Like, he has already come out and said he was fighting back tears here. Okay. Makes sense. This is actually personal for him, to be fair.
As we say in the Catholic Church, no purgatory for this guy. 5 daughters. Straight to heaven. And by the way, I say to every young man thinking of getting married, marrying a family of 5 or more daughters. I did. My wife's the oldest of 5 sisters. You know why? One of them will always love you. Not the same one. One of them will always be on your side. That's the biggest advantage of marrying into 5 daughters.
I think the joke he's making there is that sisters argue and disagree all the time. So if you're ever in an argument with your wife, you can go to your wife's sisters and be like, hey, do any of you agree with me? And one of them, at least, of the 4 will want to, like, fight with her sister and will take a contrarian position. So no matter what, one of the sisters of your wife will always be on your side. Either your wife or her sisters will be on your side. And so somebody will be in your park. Like, yeah, I get that. That's an old guy joke. But I get it. I get what he's getting at there. Sisters, they like to fight. And when you have a disagreement with your wife, it's nice to have somebody on your side. Even better if it's your wife's sister or sisters. I almost felt like that came off as creepy at first, but then I got the joke. Man, I wish Biden's, like, humor didn't come off as, like, creepy, like, old man humor, like, if you didn't get it, right? If one of Biden's jokes misses, it misses hard. But if it hits, it's not a bad joke.
Lisa's brother-in-law and nephew also served in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're exposed to toxic burn kits because they're both fighting lung now. Because of that, they're fighting lung and heart disease. The PACT Act is finally getting them the VA benefits they deserve. Lisa's called it a game changer and says volunteers, and she volunteers at the VA in Manchester to a quote, as she says, to give something back. She's already given a lot. Lisa, you spent years giving back. It's time we have your back and have it now.
Biden is based for this. I really hope he gets the proper due credit, but, you know, the online left won't provide it. Let's hope mainstream media does. I'll admit, the fact this is getting as much coverage as it is a good sign. That's definitely a good thing. Regardless, though, if you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like and commenting down below. Both actions boost my channel, my videos, and my streams in the algorithm, so no matter when or what you're watching, please consider doing so. It really helps a lot. Consider subscribing, ringing the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video. And of course, if you want to see more from me online, you can follow my social medias, which are linked down below in the description. And don't forget, if you want to support me financially so I can afford food and lights and a roof over my head, consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me financially through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buying merch to the Streamlabs link down below. I do have a merch store. I highly recommend you check it out. And of course, if you haven't already, please join my fan Discord. It is the hub of my fan base. I announce all my streams and videos there, so you won't miss anything if you have notifications turned on for it. And I host watch parties, call-in streams, and game events there. So it's the hub of my fan base. Free to join. I hope to see you there. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again. Thanks for watching.